where they were, and that's what we're talking about, the then and now. Our 2015 calendar, which Sean put together, is called Then and Now, and highlights a lot of those properties, which, by the way, we happen to have on sale back up there at the table, our table. And we have previous calendars on sale. There's some pretty good deals on sports and firefighters calendar and so forth. And if you want to become a member of the society, just feel free to stop at the table up there. We'll see Linda Rennie. She just raised her hand, one of our trustees over here. Our secretary raising her hand, Linda Rennie. That's Linda. If you want to become a member, we can always use members and support and so forth. I always tell people history as far as fundraising goes and raising money is at the bottom of the food chain. We really are. It's very hard to raise money for history. It's very easy to raise for the Boys and Girls Club, cancer-related things, feed the poor and all that, but when you ask money for history, it's like, they get it, so it's very hard. So we can use everybody's help. The membership is only $15 for 1 year, so we could use your help. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our featured speaker tonight. He's a former resident of Marlborough, graduated from Assabet Valley in 1982, moved out of Marlborough, I don't know why, in 1990, and he lives in Northbridge now, but he has been researching the rock. I'm going to let him tell the whole story and about it, and I'm sure it's going to be very, very interesting. And we promise to get you out of here because we have to be out of here by 9 o'clock. So we'll get you out of here probably even before that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Bruce Casey.
It's not a piece of the rock, but what it is, it's a reproduction of one of the paintings done in the 70s. Which is kind of really interesting. We'll tell you that story of the gentleman that painted it later on. So our story goes very simply. My name is Bruce Casey. My parents are Paul and Janine Casey. My father came from Waltham. My mother came from Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada. In 1959, they moved to Hudson. Lower Main Street. Okay, that's when the history of the Caseys started. They moved in 1963 to Marlborough, to Madison Street. We went to schools in the area. We grew up in the neighborhood of Madison Street and Marlborough Street. And most of these kids became lifelong friends. The story of the rock that we know of starts in 1965, that we know of. We don't know exactly when the first painting happened, but the first known painting that was relayed to us was done in 1965. The story goes, George Hutch, a city councilor from Marlborough, decided to run against Casey Haydad for mayor. In the time of the 60s, anybody painting a rock would be subject to prosecution. So the first great painting that was done in 1965 was actually done after nightfall. And it was a simple painting. It said, "Elect Hutch for mayor." It was done by Bill Myla, and he later on went on to work for Carling Brewery in Natick, and unfortunately he passed away in an industrial accident at that job. But that is the first painting. The second painting that we have on record is from 1971. I'm going to go back to the reason why I started this painting page. I'm a researcher. I've learned how to research Acadian history, and I'm an historian of my whole family lines. In the process of becoming an historian, I've become an historian or student of history in general. So anything that happens in my life, I have to know the history behind it. It's a curse, but I love it. Okay? So one day, we're thinking of painting a rock for my sister. My sister came in 2010. And I said to myself, I wonder what the history of the rock is. So I started doing research. Went down the normal avenues of going to the libraries. And I came to the historical societies. And I realized there was no history of this rock. Okay? To people in Marlborough and Hudson, this is pretty powerful. Very powerful. If you go through the paintings here, you'll see a lot of paintings that are very personal to a lot of people. And what we've done, one night, I decided to post a painting of the Boston Bruins. In 1990, the Bruins played in the Stanley Cup Finals and failed to win. But they were down 3-1. And we decided we were going to stick up the Bruins. We paint the rock. And this is the rock right here. Now the techniques of painting, okay, you can do your regular jump on someone's shoulders and do this, okay? But what we did with this rock is we took an edge, a straight edge. We brought it across the whole rock. We put planks and milk cartons right here, and then we painted the whole thing white. And then we put a screw in the middle of the rock. And then with the edge, we drew the straight lines. Drew them out. And this is what you came up with. And then we wrote a little more about, you may be down, but you're not out. And then we went further, and we wrote down our parents' names, our fathers' names, because that was the thing. And if you know me, I'll let you a little secret. My grandfather moved down here from Canada in 1923, and the Bruins started in 1924. So he watched the whole Bruins history from that point on up to the present. So this is where our family gets our loyalty to Bruins. So this is the picture of me back in 1990 in May, and this is the rock. So it was raining that night, and I came down and put a top over it, and it's really set really nice. So that's just some of the background of where I come from. So that's Coppolino, and other people in this room. My brother David Casey graduated after 1975. A couple of his paintings will be shown tonight. And his best friend Bob Morrell, whose father was a commander in the Navy and decided to retire back in his hometown of Hudson. He came down in 1973 and retired. And Bob came in as a teenager into that area, and one of the activities he got involved with the Hudson CYO band. And they welcomed him into the band, and he's been a brother ever since. So we're going to go through a little the history. So why don't we start the program, Jess? Jess has turned out to be one of the administrators of the rock page. And basically all the administrators have felt the same way I felt about creating a history and writing down the history so people will have a general idea of the history of the rock other than just driving by and looking really quick. Okay? The rock is a giant symbol of common grief, hope, celebration. It's like the whole concept of Facebook. It's a place where people can express themselves, say something meaningful to all to see it. We grew up painting the rock. It has layers of paint, layers of history, layers of love. Each layer is a story of real people we loved and lost. Okay? This is an example of the layers of love. We'll be presenting a copy of something like that to the Historical Society as a testament of our talk tonight. 1971 was an era of peace, love, okay? Unfortunately, we had nicknames for different towns. okay? One of the nicknames of Hudson is called Bone Town. Right or wrong, that's what it was. So we got this from one of our friends, and he sent it to us. And when we started the rock page, we had to come back. We couldn't just start at the present. We had to go back. So the first thing we did was we clobbered everybody. Anybody that joined, we said, join all you want. We want stories, but the first thing we want is pictures. So they sent out pictures. And one of my friends, Rich Marlborough, he's been a friend of mine, God, a long time. So when we painted the rock for my sister, in 2010, my sister came down with leukemia. She moved down to MD Anderson, Houston. It takes a lot of cost to a family. So her friends and family decided to do a fundraiser for her. We raised $15,000 in one night. And to add to the celebration of the fact that we were doing something positive, we came down and painted a rock in her honor. And Rich Rowley is here painting the outline of the original ribbon that we drew on the rock. Now, Rich Rowley is probably the one gentleman in the 2000s that has painted the rock the most. Okay? There was a golden era in the 70s, the 80s, but now the 70s and 80s child is coming back and painting the rock again in the 50s and 60s. And we actually have someone that was 89 years old painting the rock recently. So it's generally, the story of the rock starts in the 60s and 70s as a way for teenagers to express themselves in almost a